So I'm planning to do an updated video about my travel art kit, but before I do that I wanted to do this video in a bit more detail about my watercolours. And I think this little kit of 15 colours that I've got is perfect, or very nearly perfect. But I just want to say a disclaimer that this is very much my own opinion of what works for me. It's not in any way intended to be me telling you what you should do or criticising anybody that has a different perspective on, how they choose their colours or how many colours they have or anything like that. Like, it's not meant in any way as a criticism, it's just about what works for me. So I've been using these same 15 colours for over a year now, and I've got no regrets about the choices. There's maybe one that I think when it runs out I'll swap it for something different, but I'm not in any urgent rush to go out and change any of my colours. Like, I'm really happy with how they're all working. The only thing I've added to this is I did do a little small tin of white gouache for if I want some opaque. But to be honest, mostly if I want a little bit of white opaque, I just use a white gel pen. But I have got like the gouache, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And then I also recently bought this little tiny cute tin with some metallics, and I've already done a separate video about the metallics. So if you're interested in that, you can go and have a look. But the metallics is kind of like, this is like my party dress that comes out once in a blue moon. Whereas this is like my favourite jeans and t-shirts that I'm just, using all the time. So with so many manufacturers and a myriad of different colours to choose from, how did I narrow it down to these 15 that I'm still happy with a year later? Well, I've got to say my method is not conventional. I didn't do a lot of research, I didn't buy a lot of samples, I didn't take a lot of opinions from other people. What I did was, on the day where I felt that inspiration that I wanted to make this tin, I went to my local hobby shop, Hobbycraft, and looked at the paint. The only thing really that I knew beforehand was that I wanted to get pre-filled pans, because I know it would work out cheaper in the long run to buy tubes, but at that point I had no idea how much I would use the watercolour or not, and I didn't want to spend out a lot of money on lots of tubes and then by the time I go back to them they're all dried up and whatever. So I just decided, right, I'm going to get pre-filled pans. So the shop that I went to, the only pre-filled pans they had were Winsor & Newton Cotman. So that's the student grade of the Winsor & Newton paints. So guess what I picked? And then as for choosing the colours, wow, this was another thing which I think was in my favour, that they were actually really short of stock the day that I went. So there wasn't much choice, which doesn't sound like it's a good thing, but it limited my indecision, because some of the choices were made for me. So for example, there were slots on the shelf for several different yellows, but they only had one yellow still in stock. So guess which yellow I bought? So you get the idea. I was, everything was limited. I was limited to how many colours I could fit in my tin. I was limited to my choice of what brand, and I was limited with my colours. So some of the choices that I made, so for example, I've got white and black, and I know those can be quite controversial colours with some watercolourists. It's kind of like pineapple on pizza. Some people are very, very strongly against having white and black watercolours. But I think, if the companies are making them, then there's obviously some value in using them. That's my opinion anyway. And I do use them, not excessively, but they do get used on a regular basis. And then I've got one yellow, a couple of reds, some greens, blues, brown, purple, black. So it's, although it's a limited palette, to me I think it's quite a good range of colours. And I've seen so many videos where people are kind of comparing and testing out like the same colour from different manufacturers, or like the colour range from a particular manufacturer, and I really enjoy watching those. But for me, I just feel that I would be too bogged down in too many choices. And if you do like those kind of videos of the comparing and the rating kind of the different qualities and things like that, I would recommend Helen Cryer, if you've not come across her on YouTube. She does lots of really interesting comparisons, and she's got loads of different products, not just watercolour but other things as well, and she actually uses them whereas I think for me, if I had that array of stuff, I'd end up not using most of it anyway. So for me personally, keeping my options limited is the best way for me to go. But then on the other hand, I've also seen lots of videos where people just have a tiny tin, sometimes even smaller than this, where they've literally got like 3 or 4 colours, like maybe the primaries and a dark or a neutral colour, and then they just use literally just those very few colours to create every colour that they need in their painting. So for me, I think that would be too limited. So again, 15 colours is ideal for me because it's a small tin, it doesn't take up much room, but it still gives me a good array of colours. And if people can do amazing artworks with 3 or 4 colours, then I shouldn't feel that only having 15 should limit me. Like I should be able to get any colour that I want by mixing the colours that I've got here. And something else which I've not done, which you see a lot of people do, is I've not got a little colour chart kind of stuck inside or on the back anywhere showing what colours are in here, because I don't feel like I need it. Not that I remember what all the colours are called, but my point is it doesn't matter what they're called, because I've only been using these same colours for a year. I know what the colours are. So for example, the ones which are really dark and in their solid form, you can't necessarily tell what colour they are. I know what colour they are because they're the same paints I've been using all along. And I have done colour charts. So for example, I've got one in the back of a sketchbook, and also I've done sketches of the painting, and then I've done the actual colours that are in the pans, like on the sketch. So it's not like I've never swatched out all the colours. I have. I just don't feel the need to carry it with me in the tin. So what I'll do next is I'll change the camera angle so you can get a closer view, and I will actually swatch out the colours so that you can see. And I could have a look at my list and then write on my swatch like what the colours are, but I'm not going to do that because, like I said, the point of this is that it doesn't matter what they're called. The point is what they look like. But for those of you that are interested, when I'm editing this, I will put the colours on the screen as I'm swatching them out. How many times have I already mentioned that I've been using this for a year? I'm sorry if I'm getting repetitive. But the only colour really that I think I might want to change is I've got 2 greens, which I do remember these are Hooker's green. So I've got Hooker's green light and Hooker's green dark. And I think at some point I might want to replace one of those with a more natural green. But at the moment I've just been, you know, when I'm doing the green and I think, oh, that's not very natural looking, then I just add in a bit of brown or a bit of yellow just to kind of, you know, adjust that colour slightly, and that's been working fine. But yeah, so as I say, I may in future just kind of switch one out, but I've got no plans for making a bigger set or multiple sets, well, apart from my metallic, but that's kind of a, you know, separate thing altogether, isn't it? If there are any that I'm not happy with, or if I do, you know, when I'm out and about and I see a colour that I really like, then that would have to replace one that's already in here. It wouldn't be an extra. That's my goal anyway. I don't want to end up with having, you know, 10 different palettes for 10 different possible scenarios. I want to be able to just put one small tin in my bag and go, you know, wherever I'm going to paint. So the general gist of what I've been saying, my message regarding the perfect paints is just be content and make the best of what you've got. Like, I don't think there's the need to spend a fortune on trying every different paint, unless of course your hobby is buying art supplies. But if you actually want to get like really familiar with your paints and yeah, just stick with the same few colours and just, you know, experiment with your mixing colours. And the other thing which I do here, sorry, I will get to show you the colours in a minute. Sorry, I keep thinking of extra things I want to say. When I'm mixing colours, I just use the lid. I haven't got a separate mixing tray. And again, I've found this to be perfectly adequate. I try and approach it kind of like when you're doing a washing up, like if you're washing up by hand and you know, you wash up the glasses and the cups first because they're the cleanest, and then you gradually work up to like the greasy roasting pan. So I kind of try and do that a little bit with my colours. So I try and start off in my image that I'm painting with the lighter colours. So for example, you know, if I've got like a very pale blue sky, you know, maybe I'll do that first. And then if I've got some yellow, and then I've already then got the blue and the yellow on there to perhaps mix to do some green or add some of the other greens in, you know, and then I just kind of try and work around the picture. So I'm not making a colour, finish with that, wipe it out, start again. You know, I'm trying to progress through the colours as I go. And that doesn't always work. I mean, there was one occasion I remember, like sticks in my head, I was painting a building and there was like, you know, it was all sort of like red brick, and then I'd kind of adjusted my shades of the brick, and then, you know, I'd kind of darkened it for the shadowed areas, and then I think can't remember if I then changed that into a different colour altogether. Maybe I added green or something, or I just got to the point where it's like, okay, I need some more space now, and then I just wiped out all that brown. And then afterwards I realised I hadn't painted the chimney, which was also red brick. So then I did have to mix some more paint afterwards. So, you know, it's not perfect, but that's kind of how I approach the mixing as well. And for the most part, you know, I just use that same area for the whole painting. Occasionally I need to wipe it out in the middle of the painting and then start again, but not very often. But I do work on quite a small scale, so I do appreciate that, like, you know, if you're doing bigger paintings, then that little mixing area is not going to be enough and you would need something extra. But for me, this is perfectly adequate. Okay, stop chatting, Laura, and show some paint. Okay, maybe I should also mention that the little pans are held in on little magnets as well. I'm figuring you probably guessed that, but I don't know why I'm swatching the white, because that you're not really going to see. But that's my white. I can't honestly tell you what white that is. Maybe Chinese white, I'm not sure. And then the yellow, which was my only yellow. I've used more yellow than any other colour here, but I think that's because it gets used quite a lot in my green mixes. So just water that down on the other half. I've got a feeling this might be cadmium yellow, but I'm not 100% sure. And then this next one, oh, I've no idea what this one's called, but it's kind of a yellowy, kind of beigey, browny sort of colour. So this gets used for quite a lot of things, whether I'm watering it down for like a, you know, like a white kind of skin tone, not that I do people very often, or for like brickwork or stonework. Yeah, I've no idea what colour that is. But it doesn't matter what it's called, does it? I know what I use it for. Oops. I think I must have something on the paper. It's kind of resisting a little bit for some reason. This is kind of slightly more reddish brown. This is a good one for brickwork. Let's get a little bit more dark in there. Again, not sure what colour that's called. This last one on the top row, I believe, is Van Dyke brown. Oh, I really have got like stripes of resist here for some reason. There must be something on the paper. Okay, and then starting the second row with my unnatural greens. Got a vague feeling this one's called emerald green, but you'll see on the screen if I'm right or not. And then I know the next two are hooker's green. And I believe they should be light and then dark. So this should be hooker's green dark, which looks to my eyes almost identical. So this is another reason why, you know, at some point I might switch out one of these greens, because, you know, there's not a huge difference. Like in my eyes, there's not a huge difference. And then I've got red, which I believe is cadmium, I think. I think my yellow and red are both cadmium, or the hue, cadmium hue. Again, red's not necessarily one that I use that much on its own, but it has been used a fair amount, so it's obviously been mixed with other things quite a bit. And then this other one, which kind of looks brown, but it's kind of like a brownish red colour. I want to say Indian red. I think that's what it's called. And then down on the bottom row we've got the start of the, what I call the blue section. This is turquoise, I think. Again, this is another one, like to my eyes it doesn't look all that different. I mean, obviously the first one is kind of more of a, you know, more turquoise, and this one's more blue, but not a huge difference. like if I had to sacrifice one of those, like I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't worry too much. And then this one I think is Prussian blue, which always disappoints me. I always feel like the Prussian blue should be much darker than that. I don't know why. So again, my blues, like the greens, you know, I don't feel that there's necessarily a huge amount of difference. So I could, you know, at some point in the future change a green and change a blue, but for now, you know, I'm making do with what I've got. This one, this purple, which is very definitely a colour on its own. Dioxazine, is that the way you say it? And this one, you know, I nearly didn't buy this one because I was like, what do I want purple for? But I actually use it quite a lot. Like for shadows, for example, I tend to do a little bit of the black and a little bit of the purple and then just really water it down, and that's my kind of, you know, purpley grey sort of for my shadows. So there you go, that's my perfect watercolour set. I've not demonstrated mixing any colours because, you know, obviously there are a million different possibilities of what you can mix with what. But I think, you know, for a small set, it's a fairly good colour range, and it's been working well for me. Did I mention I've been using it for a year? Anyway, I hope you'll come back soon and see my full travel art kit when I do an updated video of that. Of course, I'm also working on Inktober at the moment, and I've recently come back from holiday, so I also want to show you my holiday sketches, and I've got other projects that I've been working on that I want to show you as well. So I've got lots of ideas in the works for videos coming up. So hopefully I will see you again very soon. Thanks for watching.